Hello. How are you?
Messy.
Okay. All right. It's a messy week. I'm
Yeah.
messy too.
I feel like that's the real raw answer. And I just said that to somebody early because they're like, hey, how you doing? And I would say 95% of the time my answer is enjoy. But this week is messy. Definitely, I think because I just got my period, and the more I'm becoming aligned energetically, the more I truly notice when I have my menstrual cycle, which is bizarre because for 20 plus years it was kind of like it was just there. It was just a thing that you did every month. And now I'm
Well,
like, damn.
you're aligning. You're
Yeah. Oh yeah.
aligning. All right.
But before we get into that,
So I'm Michelle with Mocha Grace Coaching, and I am a emotional liberation coach. And what that means is I help people that are in the midst of chaos find their calm and find their peace, and take control back of their emotions, so their emotions aren't controlling them. Kerri.
hey guys, I am Kerri Lewis living my best life. Truly. And as a result, I help other people do the same. I am somebody who's overcome a lot of addiction and mental health issues. And so I work with a lot of people in that space. But really, at the end of the day, I hold space for people as they heal so that they can then show up and live life, in a way that feels really, really good for them rather than living life um, based on conditions, expectations, or habits that have been ingrained in their psyche since the time they were born.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Amazing. Isn't it interesting? Have you ever gone back and like watched either like a video with a client, or even our videos, or any of your videos that you have, and like you all of a sudden are coaching yourself?
Oh yeah, always. Well, you know what? I think about that because you and I both students of A Course in Miracles, right? And we always are each other's miracles, but how
Mhm.
often are we our own miracles from
Yep.
like forever ago? Like I'll
Yeah.
have a Facebook whatever reminder from 10 years ago and it's the exact thing I needed to see in that exact moment. I'm like, oh, I
Isn't
see
that awesome?
you.
We're sending ourselves little messages from
Yeah.
beyond. Well, it could be from the future, it could be from the past. We don't really know,
Yeah.
because I don't think time is linear. I think it's more of a spiral, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even try to understand. That's just
Yeah.
and I think that's where I have gotten to, for me personally, I know I'm in ego when I'm trying to make sense of things
Yeah.
for me because how can you understand this vast greatness that is creation? It's so beyond our understanding that I don't even because once I go down that rabbit hole, forget about it. I'm spiraling into insane
Right.
stuff.
And what's the purpose? Right? When you think about the things that you do, or the things you think about, or that are in your heart, what's the purpose of that? What value will that bring to our everyday, to understand the vastness of the universe and how we were all created, versus living in the present moment and what we've been given, what we've created or co-created, and just being here and enjoying the moments, good, bad, or indifferent,
Well, the
enjoying
purpose
the
is
moment.
perceived control. Let's just call
Right.
it spade a
Right.
spade. Yeah. We
Right.
start to want to understand because in this like diluted way of thinking, we think that we can then control
Hmm.
the outcome of whatever. And
Which
we,
is not true.
yeah, 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 totally.
Not true. Because the only thing we can control is ourselves.
Yeah. And how we show up and
Mhm.
experience what it is we're experiencing,
Yeah.
Are we honoring ourselves or are we uh keeping ourselves in suffering?
Yeah.
Ultimately, that's the choices we have, right?
And we can give ourselves the space and the grace to be in that suffering as we need to go through those dark nights and those moments. But then it's trusting that we have everything we need internally to get out of those,
Yeah, I
and then we're
agree.
gonna come out and
Well,
be
so it's so funny. I wrote down this little thing because you know me, I'm a
fine.
extensive reader,
I love it.
and so rules to achieve the perfect day.
Huh?
Always ask for advice before you decide anything. Now, here's the
Hmm.
two choices you get to decide, though. Who are
The heck is that? Wait. What? Oh, come on.
Evidently, the universe really likes that I'm sharing this.
That's funny. Okay.
Okay,
Rule. Okay.
so the two choices are right. We
Right.
get to ask for advice from our lower self, our ego, our
Okay.
the lower self that wants to control, or we get to ask for advice from our spirit. Either way, we should always ask for advice before we make a decision. Okay. Second, you and your advisor
Mm-hmm.
must agree on what you want before it can occur.
And who's the advisor? Your higher or lower self,
Yes.
whichever you're functioning from.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Hi, Debbie Grant. How are you? Please
Debbie Grant, are
feel
you kidding?
free to jump in with any thoughts.
Hello, ladies. My goodness, we go back so far. I'm
I
so
love
glad to see
that.
you here. Okay,
It's
go
so
ahead. I'm
nice
sorry.
to have you here. Yes.
It is
Okay. So
amazing.
your advisor is your lower self, your fear,
Okay.
your fear. Or depends, right? You can say a million things, but
Right.
it's either ego versus spirit or love versus fear. But that's your advisor, right? And
Right.
how do you know when you're in love, when you're content? The minute you're in angst, you're obviously listening
In
to fear.
fear or something. Right. Exactly.
So then three, decisions cause results because they are not made in isolation. This is something I found fascinating, right? Because
Hmm.
we in our thinking mind are always like, I'm doing this alone. But
Right.
but if we're created from a creator,
Right. We're doing nothing alone.
we're co-creating. So we're
Right.
never alone. So
Exactly.
it's never going to be in isolation. So I think it's really important for me. Like I wrote
Mhm.
this down for me, right? To remember that when I think I'm in isolation, I'm falling into the thinking of fear or the egoic mind. I'm falling back into, really, at the end of the day, the way I see it and give myself grace is I'm
Mhm.
falling back into old patterns and conditioning. So then, and I'll show you the page in the course so that way you
Of
don't have
course.
to write this down. But okay,
Oh, I'm
this,
just taking notes.
yeah, decisions are made by you and your advisor for yourself and the world. And I want to highlight this
Yes.
because I understand that, and that's what keeps me going when I have days like yesterday, right before my period kicks in, and I'm like emotional roller coaster, and I
Mhm.
just really want to tell the universe to go F itself, but I'm like, no,
Right.
I gotta stay the course because I know that as I show up as love, right? I am impacting the world as love. And I always think of the statement that says, all thoughts extend all thoughts extend. And that's
Mhm.
profound because our thoughts impact everybody because we're not separated. So then the world needs two who would have happiness this day to promise it all to the world. And this is where, right, the Bible talks a lot about it. The Tao Te Ching
Mhm.
talks a lot about it. It's Tao, but I always say Tao because it says T. But anyway, what that means is we co-create joy for the world when we co-create in joy. And so I
That
always
makes
am
sense.
incredibly conscious of the energy I'm putting out. And I'm not good. I'm not always great at it. The other
Mhm.
day, it's like a whole hot emotional mess. But generally speaking, when you're cultivating joy within yourself, you're
Right.
co-creating in joy, and that really impacts the world as a whole to experience more joy rather than the suffering that we continue to see that's pervasive, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then two must join before there can be a decision. Right. So we forget again, we forget like, I don't even know. Like, okay, I'll give you a good example. Hey, Kerri, do you want to have a schedule for hosts, for guests?
A
Right.
topic that we had just had. Yes.
Yeah. But the thing is like for me, I took a minute and I'm like, before I responded, I'm like, okay, do you know, and I asked, and I could have made one of two choices. I could have
Mm-hmm.
operated from fear, which that people are going to be like, well, how's that fearful? Anytime I try to control something, you're operating in fear. You just
Mm-hmm.
are. And I know that for a lot of people who probably haven't, moved through that this many shifts, that can feel really interesting or hard to understand, but it is true. The minute I try to create a circumstance rather than just let the circumstance unfold,
Mm-hmm.
then I'm operating in fear. And that's why my response to you was what? Well, I don't really care.
Well, so interesting point, because there's always two sides to the same
Yeah.
coin. And so yes, it can be, if you're trying to control everything, it can be from an egoic perspective. However, giving people an opportunity to join us and saying, here's the calendar, select your day, is not taking control or being in control. It's making it easy for all of us to co-create this show, the way I see it.
Yeah.
So that, I
We'll
mean,
just
that,
have to agree to disagree. But
right.
that's literally because, don't get me wrong, like, but that's the other thing. So here's the thing, right? And I think this goes to the point that I said about Krista last week, and I really thought about it, right? When she has this list of stuff, that's her gift from God. So that's
Absolutely.
I was thinking about it. I'm like, is that ego or is that just her gift? But that's not my gift. So
Right.
for me, that does not feel aligned. That doesn't mean it's right or wrong. It's just I'm not the person who's going that feels the need to sit and make those types of decisions. And in
Mm-hmm.
fact, I'm laughing because I'm sitting on the toilet earlier and I'm thinking about somebody who I have a lot of respect with, but she put out to her community the question, what's the proper way to put a toilet paper roll on your toilet paper so it faces up or faces down? And I was like, I couldn't even imagine giving a shit one way or the other like that. Like that to me just is like, wow.
I'm like, it's this way. Of course. It comes from the top, because it's called always cascading down.
That's so funny because I'm the opposite way.
Right.
And
And this is why we're here together.
I know, and it's so funny because but then I'm like, do I even care? And then I went through this whole thing. I'm like, oh, I wonder why I put it down. And so I'm like, oh yeah, because when I worked for Starbucks and they taught you that it makes it easier with those, the toilet
Right.
paper rolls that drop down if you pull from the bottom. And I'm like, so basically I've just been automatically defaulting putting toilet paper on one way, only because I never stopped to question it.
So, right, exactly. So, and but look at the messiness and the questioning that you're doing and the curiosity,
Yeah.
which is leading you down a path to enlightenment and, expansion, because Krista's gift is definitely organization and operations. uh
Thank
my
God.
my yeah, thank God. My gift is definitely being able to talk to people, get them through fear, move them, but also be a bit organized. If you ask my family, they'll tell you I'm not absolutely organized, but there are certain things that I like to have, aligned. Like, I like to know what's happening.
Yeah.
Um and you're like, I'm going to pop in and show up, and whatever's in front of me. And isn't that the beauty of the
People.
co-creation of God, of the world, of the universe, of the show. um and because you're going out there and you're finding all of these amazing, wonderful people, I want them to come on and be seen by everyone here. And
Yeah.
so thank you all for being here, and hold on tight, because what a lineup that we're going to have, because there's some of these beautiful souls that we're going to be talking to, and I'm so super excited. So you keep doing you, I'll
Oh,
keep
I will.
doing me, Krista keeps doing her, and then we're just all good. We're
Yeah.
we're all good. And okay, so back to your list. Did you was that all the everything from the list? All 10?
That was the list. That
Okay.
was, but I think it's so, again, I think the most important, this ties into perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So, the second to the last, the world needs two um who would have happiness. The
Well, wasn't that perfect? Happiness and balloons. Okay. Nothing happier than that unless you're a bird.
Can I tell you, every time I'm on a community call with my community, we could be talking about whatever, and I'll do this, and the thumb will come up, or like lightning will cut, sparks will come up, and I'm like, I don't
Okay.
know what in the heck I'm doing.
It's gotta be a setting somewhere.
Yeah. But
Yeah, so
anyway,
the two and happiness.
that promises it to the whole world. And so,
Mm-hmm.
guys, and so I was talking to somebody yesterday, and this person was sharing with me that a person that they really care about has hand purple blue peace.
What?
Oh, she must have put up a hand. Debbie Grant? I don't know. But anyway, so this person feels that they are entitled to sit in depression because of the experiences that they have gone through, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Um, that is true. If you want to hold on to that,
Yes,
you get
you
to hold on to
absolutely
that.
can. Mm-hmm.
However, you're cultivating the experience that just creates you in angst. Whereas with this law or this direction, if
Mm-hmm.
I know that I can cultivate joy and experiences that are joyful for the world, when I sit in happiness, when I cultivate happiness, then I feel it is my responsibility to do what it is I need to do to come back to joy and happiness, which is exactly
Mm-hmm.
what I did the past 2 days when I was really having this messy up and down, going through emotions. My sole focus was, yes, to honor where I was at, but what did I need to do to come back and cultivate joy?
Right.
And that's what I did. Instead of saying, well, I'm getting my period. Well, my uncle died. Well, my kid's 16 and temperamental. Well, all these things. And I have a reason to be frustrated or upset. That
Right.
wasn't my lens. It
Right.
was, what do I need to do in this moment to come back and cultivate joy?
Yeah. I love that. And there has to be, and we've all learned two sides of the stick, there has to be an up and there has to be a down. Because if we're always up and we're always feeling good, we won't know that we're feeling good. So we
Mm.
have to experience a little bit of the opposite. It's just a matter of how far you let yourself dive into it, and like you said, how long you allow yourself to stay there, or allow spirit to move you and help guide you back up.
Well, you know what's interesting? I was doing a workout the other day, and it couldn't have been more timely that I heard this phrase, because I had just trained one of my clients who had shared with me that he doesn't like doing legs.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "Well, that's the thing you need to do then, because what you need to do is cultivate struggle." And why? Because when you purposefully infuse struggle with your life, in your life, then when unexpected shifts and changes happen, i.e., you lose a job, your mother passes away, your kid's unexpectedly hospitalized. You have cultivated and taught yourself resilience through
Right.
purposeful struggle. And somebody I was listening to, I have no idea who this guy is because I listen to motivational speaking stuff when I'm
Mhm.
working out, said, the way in which to be able to really move through this human experience, which to your point, there's ebbs and flows, there's going to be highs
Right.
and lows, is to cultivate that struggle on purpose so you trust and build that resilience and
Mhm.
um ability to move through the unexpected struggle.
Well, and that goes back to the old story that we not story, but the way we talk about, is it better to be, in fear or in love and prepared for whatever challenge may come, which also goes back to stoicism as far as I'm going to prepare for different conversations. However the conversation goes, it could go this way, it could go this way, it could go this way. Okay, I've got it covered. I have different ideas, plan A, B, C, and D. Whatever happens is happened. Now I feel secure in my non-negotiables, in my, you know, laws, universal law, whatever we live by. And now I know that I can stand by what I said I'm going to do or be or what have you. And then I can go into that conversation more confidently.
Yeah.
And then there's some that might say, "Oh, but no, now you're putting it out there because you're trying to plan for the conversation or control it." But I'm not. I'm maintaining my emotions and what I will and will not do or say. And it allows me not to get ruffled in situations where I may get ruffled if I'm not thinking ahead. I can't get blindsided.
Well, two things. One, Debbie, spot on, nailed it.
Mhm.
Truly, truly, when you love
Yep.
yourself through the whole experience of you, right? The
Mhm.
what some would perceive as pretty, the messy, the stuff, and
Yep.
um, I also believe love for ourselves gives us the ability and lens to show up as love in the world.
Mhm.
Now, back to, do you want to add to that before I?
Debbie is, not only does she love herself, but we all love her too. Uh, yes, love. There is nothing else but love.
Correct.
Nothing else
Well,
exists.
science is not that there's nothing else but love. However, if we're talking about an energetic expression, like
Right.
vibration,
Energetically in
yep,
frequency.
and it's
Yes.
also important to be uniquely you. Because that is
Yes.
love. It goes back to love. So I'm not going to say that, but I think it's important that our audience understands that self love is truly showing up in whatever way feels right for you, whatever that looks like.
Whatever looks like.
And
It's it.
being okay, because that has a profound
Mhm.
influence on the world and how we heal the world. I really believe that. But going back to what you were saying again, this is where I'm going to lovingly say that I operate very differently now.
Yes.
There was absolutely a point in time in which I would do exactly what you did. And moreover, I teach my community to do that now, right? Because my
Mhm.
community is called Having the Tough Conversation.
Mhm.
You do have to, I mean, you learn to cultivate ways to deliver powerful messages to get your
Mhm.
needs met, to be able to agree to disagree, to do all those things. And people who haven't practiced that
Mhm.
to be able to get to that place. But then at some point for me, I've shifted out of just I'm so much more introspective. I just sit with myself through the conversation and whatever unfolds, unfolds. And sometimes it's pretty, sometimes it's messy. I'll tell you, messy, right?
And
You
that, but that
never,
does happen. But
yeah,
that does happen because you prepare, you know what you're going into, and for me, and going in, what the possibilities are, and then when you're in the heat of the moment, whatever is happening, you're intuitively allowing spirit's voice to come through you, ideas, words, what have you, that takes over.
yeah.
So there's no so I by doing that, for me, it lessens the anxiety going in, which then frees me to allow my intuitiveness to
Yep.
come through, which is actually me being a vessel and just delivering messages.
And that is a spot on answer. I agree with you because you allow yourself to be able to feel set up for success, so
Mhm.
to speak, right? If we're talking, I mean, I'm
Right.
going back to my corporate leadership days, but feeling like I am as equipped as possible to
Mhm.
be able to deliver whatever it is I need to share in a way that for me, which is so critically important. And I tell my clients all the time, kind, clear, and offers the opportunity to teach. Well, hello, my gorgeous Miss Molly. Lo,
Hey, Molly.
need to get on a FaceTime with you soon. Oh yeah, I have your phone number.
I'm seeing her tomorrow night.
Yeah.
Yes. I
Um,
I think it's oh gosh, go ahead. It's so important.
yeah, no,
Conversation is
so
so
with that
important.
respect, I totally agree with
Mhm.
you. I really do. Um, yeah.
Because you got to let the muck out of the way. You have to acknowledge the muck, whether it's questioning, whether it's anxiety, whether it's nervousness, whatever may come up for you, you have to acknowledge it, like the messy week, the chaotic week, the ups and downs. And then once you've acknowledged it, now you've kind of cleansed. Do a cleanse, however you do your cleanse, whether you meditate on it, whether you read devotion, whatever it is, and then you're clear. Now you can receive. Now you can allow it to flow through you.
Yeah.
And that to me has been huge, huge, huge.
Well, at least because you understand why you're having the conversation, right? There's
Mhm.
conversations I won't have. For example, somebody in my family who has had the position of power in my family construct for a long time. I am very clear on
Mhm.
how I need to take care of my needs when I'm around this person, but there's no need for me to have that conversation with that person because they are so polar opposite of where I am in
Mhm.
my thinking and my understanding that it would do no good. All it would
Yeah.
do would really cause conflict. And being a person who truly believes cause and effect, law of karma, law of
Mhm.
reciprocity, I don't even want to bring that on. Like, that's just, I'd rather just sit in love and understand that for me to be able to stay in that
Mhm.
place of love, I need to keep my distance and not have those types of conversations.
Oh
And
my
so, even
gosh.
being aware of that is really important.
It's huge. And I talked about this I think it was last week on Moment of Presence. We talked about relationships versus partnerships. And one of the things that I talked about was what's more important, being happy or being right?
Mm,
Winning and being right or being happy. And that's a big one for a lot of people, especially right now, and it's going to get even worse as we get closer to November. Do not get into arguments with people if you're trying to convince them, change them. If they want to know, if they're interested in what you have to say, allow them to ask you. You can go in, you can deliver the message, and then leave it. Don't get mad, don't get angry, don't get upset if they don't agree with you. You cannot force a horse to drink water. You can lead them to the stream, but you can't hold their head
but I
And
mean, if we're going there, that's but I would. say who's right or wrong. Like and that's where I go
Well,
to. I'm like, I
yeah,
don't know. We can't know. And
no.
so do I know from my own personal experience that there are things that I want to experience within my country? For sure. I'm not going to say no.
Mhm,
But at the end of the day, it's not for me to truly decide what is right or wrong. And I just kind of just sit back and witness and show up as love. All if
mhm,
I truly believe it, and Gandhi proved it, guys. Like, yeah, Martin Luther King, but Gandhi did it on a grand scale by freeing India from Britain through love. And so anytime I'm like, oh, I need to judge or control, no, I don't. I just need to
mhm,
show up as love, honor myself, show up in happiness, and trust without having an understanding, without truly comprehending, because I don't know, but trust that
mhm.
that is enough to at least help me create the experience I want to exist in. And based on everything and the evidence I've experienced so far, help the world experience it that way as well.
So I will go to my little writing, which is I will step back and let him lead the way, for I will walk along the road to him. I'm not going to try to control anything. I'm just going to trust and I'm going to walk. And if it feels right, I'll go this way. And if it feels wrong, I'll go this way. But I will listen and be in tune. And I think the most important part of this conversation is being in love, allowing the light to flow through you, allow the love to flow through you. That's what the world needs right now. Yes, I'm going to go into a karaoke song. What the world needs now, right?
Love,
Love,
sweet
sweet
love.
love. I knew you'd join in.
Oh my God, I'm gonna have to sing that on Facebook Live. I usually sing "We the World." I haven't thought about that song.
It's so true though.
Yeah,
And that's what the world needs right now. Not arguing, not fighting, not war, not you know this person gets this and I don't, and what's fair and what love and light.
but how? I mean, I know. Okay, so, but for anybody who's curious, how do you get there? Because most people don't really I'm going to tell you right now, most people fear love.
Yes, of course. And this, oh my gosh, I literally woke up this morning and went, we need to talk about love today. Love does not have to be scary if you just allow love to happen. It's when we try to force love. I can feel love when I go outside and I look up and I see the clouds and the blue sky. I can feel love when I look at my husband. I can feel love when I'm in gratitude, which is huge. And that's where I normally go. If I'm in a down place, I think of all of the things that I'm grateful for or that I love. And then it raises my energetic frequency and it brings me up.
Yeah.
And a good
And
song
again,
doesn't hurt.
what's that?
A good song doesn't hurt.
What actually, I mean, music is a profound tool in terms
Mhm.
of raising your frequency, your vibration, for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But you're right. And for anybody who's listening, the reality is I mean, I spent years in deep depression. I mean, I
Mhm.
think about my first apartment. Oh my God. Like it just, I didn't have the capacity to clean it. I was so depressed. And when you operate from shame and guilt, you literally are at the lowest vibrating energy. So you really, truly don't have the
Mhm.
energy. And I tell my clients all the time, I tell people all the time, there's so much evidence, scientific backed evidence that the should give you the ability to give yourself grace. Like,
Yes.
just take some information and say, okay, it says that I don't have the energy, so I'm not going to judge myself. But what we do is judge. So I know what
Right.
it's like to sit in that depression. However, to get to what you're talking about, you got to take action. And to what you just said, have disciplines
Yeah.
around learning to love and learning to break free from that fear
Yes.
of love. Because if
Yes.
all you do is the same thing over and over and over and over again, you and expect different results. It's the definition of insanity. But more than that, you're just continuing to perpetuate that suffering.
Mm-hmm.
And I continue to say this over and over, and I will, because I want people to experience love like you and I experience it. We're all entitled to it. In fact, we are it.
And what that means is loving the perceived good, bad, or indifferent, and just love being in the moment. Whatever you're experiencing is for you. And it's
But
getting
that's hard to
curious.
tell somebody who's been raped or beat.
Absolutely. And we've talked about this too. Yes, absolutely. You have to get to that point where you're open to it.
Yes.
And looking at, and I, if Miss Debbie's on still, she'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Looking at the emotional guidance scale and not trying to jump too far. You can't go from depression and despair all the way up to love and joy. You can't. You have to allow yourself some, like you said, grace, but work up the scale slowly. Give yourself grace to do it a little bit at a time. Jump 2 or 3 up, and then 3 or 4 more. Anger is get angry. Angry is a good place to be, because then what comes after anger is action. You get inspired. And so anger is actually not a bad place, but it's how you use the energy of anger, which a lot of people don't understand.
Oh yeah, I love when I can get my apathetic clients angry,
Mm-hmm.
because then they can take action. And the funny thing is that
And then you do.
emotional guidance scale is essentially the map of consciousness, which was written and created by Dr. David R. Hawkins, who
Mm-hmm.
the book Power versus Force talks about how he created that specific scale. And I use it a lot with my clients
Mm-hmm.
who struggle with addiction, because it's really, really hard for them to justify not feeling guilty for drinking. But when you start to show them, listen, if you just sit here and feel guilty, all you're doing is sitting in
Right.
these two emotions. But if you get curious, just a
My
little
God,
bit of curiosity, it
I just
shifts.
had this conversation yesterday.
Yep. Curiosity. I tell people all the time, come from a place
Mm-hmm.
of curiosity rather than guilt, because curiosity opens the way for
Mm-hmm.
more awareness, and then you can make a different choice. Like, I
Yeah.
love when a client says to me, Kerri, I fell off the wagon yesterday, and then before they start to beat themselves up, I'm like, awesome, let's look at what circumstances led up to you falling off the wagon. Let's
Mm-hmm.
talk about that, because then, coming from like basically a scientific deductive reasoning
Right.
methodology, which I never even really thought about until this second, but we can create framework for,
Mm-hmm.
okay, so you run into this same situation next time, what's another tool or strategy that you can lean into that is maybe going to be a little bit more supportive, a little bit gentler and kinder towards
Right.
yourself. And
Right.
so, yeah, the map of consciousness, or whatever you call the emotional
Emotional
guidance
guidance.
scale, is a very useful tool, I think, and really I think it needs to be a global tool that people use to give themselves permission to be kind to themselves, because
You know,
damn, do we condemn ourselves.
it's interesting because I was just going to say yes, and I think it should be taught in school with kids. And then that made me think about, I had this flashback of when my daughter was in the hospital. They would bring her the a little pain management sheet, and it would have the smiley faces that would go all the way to sad faces, and it was like, where are you, instead of asking them like what number. It was, where are you, how much do you hurt. And so, why is it that we wait until they go into the hospital to ask kids that? Why are we not asking them like every day when they walk in? Like, hey, where are you, Johnny? Where are you today? Oh, see, yesterday you were here and today you're here. What's happened? And have
I
a conversation.
Well, Two things. One, Debbie Grant, that really fills my heart, and I'm so, so glad. And though, I really am glad that this conversation, it serves all of us, right? Because we're both students and teachers, and I always, always remind myself, I am learning as I'm teaching. You're
Mhm.
reinforcing, and that is embedding into your subconscious. And when we think about it, right, we've all listened to and followed along with the habits and the belief systems for however many years we are, right?
Mhm.
I started studying this work at 14, sure,
Yeah.
but I didn't really immerse myself with the wisdom of it until my 30s. So that's like 30
Yeah.
years of whatever. So me talking about it helps me as well as helps hopefully others. So I love that so much. Um, Secondly, I was talking to a teacher. Nana and I happen to be out to eat, and we always sit at the bar. We don't drink, but I love to sit at a bar because we'll play cards and we talk to anybody who sits next to us. So we ended up talking to this teacher who is a kindergarten teacher,
Mhm.
and her school has bought into much what you were saying. And I actually am going to be interviewing her. I gave her my business card, and of course I'll have her on our show
Heck yeah.
because she said much to what you were saying about why aren't we teaching this to our kids. And I
Mhm.
want to give a really good example about how that can play out for teenagers. So my daughter, my 14-year-old,
Mhm.
when she doesn't like a subject or whatever, she puts it off until the last minute. And then this is a cycle. She spirals, and then she's overwhelmed. So
Right.
yesterday she came in and she's overwhelmed and stuff. And I said, you have some options. You either go into school and tell the teacher, well, you didn't do it yet, it's not complete, and take the hit on your grade. You miss school because you're really anxious, and I'm that mom who doesn't care. My kids'
Mhm.
emotional health means more to me than any work they ever produce. And as a
Mhm.
result, they do very well in school because they know they have that ability to take
Right.
care of themselves if
To
they
be
need.
honest and upfront.
Yep. And or you can email your teacher and have this conversation. And I could tell she was really grappling with guilt because,
Mhm.
I said, babe, at the end of the day, you have to do what feels good for you.
Right.
Doesn't have to make sense to the teacher. It certainly doesn't have to make sense to me. It has to feel good for you. And when I give her that ability, she learns. She
Mhm.
is able to recognize, oh, yeah, I put it off because I really don't like it. What do I need to do next time so I don't have to feel this way and stuff? And that to me is more important than the actual thing she does because she's learning how she feels
Yeah.
and then learning what she needs to do for herself to
Mhm.
not feel that way moving forward.
Yeah. And that's so important because you're teaching her to listen from within
Mhm.
and make the choices, and also recognize that there's an effect that your choice is going to bring, and you have to be okay with that too.
And not feel badly, though. I think, again, my daughters have a very
Mhm.
enlightened mom, right? And so it does not get lost upon me that my children are combating a lot of old narratives on grades are important and time and attendance is important and all of that blah blah blah, which I'm gonna be honest, like I'm like whatever, because I don't buy into our school paradigm, but to your point, I love that they struggle with their teachers that way because it gives them even more ability to know how to take care of themselves when the world pushes back because it's gonna
Absolutely.
push back. And then
Absolutely.
how do you stay grounded in what feels good for you?
Yeah. And teaching them how to get curious about their choices and the why is important too.
Yep.
Like, for instance, in this class that I'm in, and working with this group, and there were some, oh god, not that book, and I had never read that book, but I heard what they were saying about the book, and I was like, this is gonna, it just sounds hard. And I was like, well, but it sounds hard for them. All right, let me be open and let me just dive in. I get the meaning of the book, but did not like it, did not enjoy it. understand the why behind it, understand the teachings, the lessons, but I did not like the book. I did what I was asked because it made me feel good. It was my choice to do it. It was also my choice to dive into it so fast and to absorb all of it in 3 days versus a chapter a week or a month. But I had that choice. And I think choices are important to remember that we always have a choice. We always have a choice. We just have to think about, is it coming from, am I making this choice from a place of fear?
Mm-hmm.
Am I making it from a place of love? Am I making it from a place of curiosity? Am I, some of the things that I fear or I don't want to do that, I will jump into quicker because I'm challenging that fear. I'm challenging the fear because I don't want to feel fear. Nothing should, I shouldn't be afraid of anything because I know who's on my side. I
Mm-hmm.
know who's got my back. And so if I'm a vessel and spirit's got my back, then what am I afraid of? There shouldn't be anything.
I mean, and look, I think we always have to, we are meant for expansion. You got to push yourself
Yes.
outside your comfort zone for sure. You know, for me, it's interesting. I picked up a book that I thought I would be able to read, and energetically, I couldn't. I had a viscerally negative reaction to the book. And I understood why. It's not that what this person was saying was not true. It's actually a prolific spiritual thought leader in the globe
Mm-hmm.
right now. The reason I had a visceral reaction is because the book was written for people who have not achieved my level of consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
So while everything is right, it it was speaking stuff that I had learned 15 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, I didn't need to visit that book.
Right.
And so my body was like, don't touch it. But it took me like feeling the book, experiencing my emotion around it, and then getting curious. Ooh, what's this about? Like, what this person's teaching is love, but like no question
Mm-hmm.
about. But it was just in a simpler way, and it was in a way that could be received and absorbed by people who are experiencing depression or are sitting in those lower emotional
Right.
states that need to be shifted out of them before they could even ever understand what I'm talking about. And that's true too. The
Yeah.
disconnect, there's a lot of people who could watch this and be like, these two ladies are wackadoodle do. And that's a real
And that
perspective
is
from where they are.
okay.
Yeah. But it's also a natural perspective.
Yeah,
Like, you know,
absolutely.
mhm.
Absolutely. And I mean, we kind of started this show because we had been talking about the book that I had started to read that took me 10 years to read, which was The Disappearance of the Universe, because I would get to parts of it, it would piss me off. It didn't feel right. I was like, what the hell? And I would close it, and then when I was ready, I would open it back up again and I'd take a look at it. And now it's led me to A Course in Miracles and going down that decision or that path, as I'm looking at a card that says the power of decision. And so it's just, but I think the key point to this is your own guidance system in your own internal body is going to guide you in the right direction because spirit has your back.
Well, yeah,
And
as long
you
as I
have
mean,
to have faith and you have to trust it.
yeah, and you have to learn to listen really well. Like I said,
Yes.
it took me until my late 30s to understand. I mean, my body will tell me I'm out of alignment in point second, like point in eighth of a second. And I know. But for years, I was operating from so much condition, so much beliefs that didn't even serve me, that I was just doing the way I thought I needed to do rather than attune
Hmm.
to what was really in my highest interest.
And I'm going to guess that your body, it was still, and your intuitiveness was still trying to come through. You just weren't connected yet, as many people aren't they're getting the messages, they're getting the nudges,
Oh, for sure.
and you just don't know what it is. You don't
Yep.
know what it is. You don't know how to respond. You don't know how to listen. You don't know how to focus on it. You don't know how to take the next step. And that's okay. That's what the process of enlightenment and expansion, that's what the process is all about. That's what's coming out of your comfort zone, is not doing the same thing, going into something new, and reaching out, and being open to it. That's even the bigger part, is being open to what you don't know.
Yeah, and that, I mean, that's why I always say, it's funny if I do like a presentation with people. It's like I'll do 5-minute presentation. I always tell them before I take them into, you know, quiet, to suspend what they think they know, because
Mm-hmm.
so often their lower thinking part of them is going to jump in and immediately, um, yeah, they're gonna immediately assume that they have the answer, they know what they're gonna feel and stuff. And I'm like, but when you just suspend it and you would be really surprised at what comes up and the insights that come up and the
Yeah.
like aha moments, that is really so important, is suspending what you think you know for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Kerri, where can people find you, my darling?
KerriLewis.coach across most social media, and that's my website as well. And,
One.
my phone number is up on my website, guys, for a reason. I love good conversation, and particularly for anybody who's suffering, if you're ever like at that point where you need help, just call me. If I don't answer, I'll call you back. But I think it's important that we for me, I make myself accessible.
Absolutely.
What about you?
I can be found at mokshagrace.com and Moksha Grace on all social media platforms. For March, I am gifting 10 people, and I have 7 spots left. A free 90-minute session of coaching. This is not a call. This isn't a discovery call, a clarity call. This is none of that stuff. This is an actual coaching call. You bring the topic, we do a coaching session for 90 minutes. And the only thing I ask is, if you feel drawn to leave a testimonial review, that you do that. But this is my gift for everyone, so that we can all blossom together for spring. I know that sounds so cheesy, but it's so true.
It is true.
We all have to blossom.
And for anybody who got any value or benefit, if you are called, share this with your
Yes.
people so that way they can hopefully get some value, or not. Either way, we're good. I have no expectations other than having
We're
good
here.
conversation with Michelle. And Miss Debbie Grant, you were a gift to my soul, as well as the beautiful Molly Lowe's. Thank you so much
Yes.
for
Yes.
popping in and showing love. I got nothing but love for you ladies as well.
What's so interesting about Debbie is that it's always strange how we come back together, because it's always either I'm thinking of her and then she pops up, or she's thinking of me and then I pop in. Like, there's always synchronicities to us connecting. So,
Divine
I
timing.
will be talking with you shortly. So anyway, love you
Thank
all.
you
Thanks for
guys.
being here, Kerri. We'll see you next week. Same